Good morning, everybody. Welcome to week 4 of our Spiritual Power Tools adventure. We are going to continue talking about the subconscious tonight, and I look forward to hearing your thoughts about the subconscious as you thought about what we talked about last week, and hopefully notice some of your own patterns as you were thinking about that and kind of picturing like, okay, I'm this iceberg of storage walking around. Who am I? How is this showing up in my life? And that kind of thing. That's how we learn how to figure those things out and be aware of what's happening. So we're going to start our slideshow here. All right. So last week, we talked about the iceberg. We are 1/10 conscious, 9/10 subconscious. And what came up for you during the week as you thought about this? Have you been more aware of your reactions that are bigger than what the situation calls for? I sure have been. Happened this morning. It gave me a chance to kind of look at some things and address what I needed to within myself. Doesn't mean the situation in the outer isn't happening and real, but I was able to see what I needed to see for myself, at least at this time. And, so it's always in action, always at work. And are there any questions that came up for you about the subconscious and how it operates? We are going to be talking about it more today, but if you have any questions that are on the top of your head, just feel free to post them in the chat area. I'll give you a minute to type anything out. It's okay if you don't have anything also. That's perfectly acceptable because we're going to keep moving no matter what anyway today. So, all right. Okay, so you are always welcome to add to the chat as you feel so moved. So here's my wonderful drawing from last week. I just want to keep putting this in front of us. It's not as pretty as the iceberg in the water, but it's a little more actively describing what I'm talking about when we're talking about the subconscious. No matter where we go, there we are, and ourselves and our iceberg and everything. Just to kind of recap, we are 1/10 conscious. There's 1/10 of us that we really know about ourselves, and the rest of it is our storage, this lifetime, other lifetimes, and that storage is what runs the show because there's a lot of emotional momentum in those pieces in our iceberg. Sometimes it's constructive and we get wonderful ideas. My son is a beautiful pianist, and we know that he's had other lifetimes where he has practiced as a musician. And so he came into this lifetime as a very young boy, just sitting down at the piano and, working with it like he owned it, like he already knew what he was doing, which he did. Part of him did know what he was doing. So that made his musical lessons a lot different than it did for me, where, who struggled to do practice every day. So not my thing, not my thing. Anyway, so sometimes that subconscious material can be very constructive and exciting and fun. Sometimes it's intrusive and annoying, and sometimes it's just downright undesirable and messy, and we all have those different parts of us. That's just who we are. We've had, our soul history where lifetime after lifetime, we've been learning our lessons and we've been experiencing things. Some things are wonderful, some things are difficult, and all of that is in our storage. It's not good or bad, it's just how it is when we live in this human world. We see a limited version of reality today because of that history coloring our vision and understanding, our limited understanding of the whole picture that's going on. So we just have a limited interpretation of what we're seeing and experiencing. I'm going to talk about that a little bit more too, but I wanted to check our chat here. What about when memories come up that aren't related to this lifetime? That's a good question. So what about them? You know, they come up and they're not from this lifetime. A lot of times those will come up for us when we need to know and understand a situation at hand. And so the beautiful thing about the psychology approach that I have with the spiritual psychology combination is that whatever tools that I teach, the ones that I've learned, that are good for working on things in this lifetime are also good for working on things when memories come up from other lifetimes. And we should all be prepared for that, even if it's just planting seeds in this lifetime for 3 lifetimes from now, because the process will still be the same. It will still be about clearing out the iceberg and looking at all those issues. So if we have a memory from another lifetime, and I'd be curious if any of you have had an experience of another lifetime, whether it was a dream that just felt too real, that it's like, oh my gosh, I felt like I was really there, but it was from the 1900s or something. Or if you've had a flash, sometimes in meditation, you know, maybe you've had a reading, a past life reading, and it resonated with you, and you're able to use that information then to understand what's happening today. Because there's nothing that's happening today that isn't already set up from some cause that we've put in our history. So if there's a forgiveness need, that experience in our outer world, in our 1/10 conscious world, will be there to jar that memory, you know, of this lifetime issues if we need it, or past lifetime issues if we need it, where we need to do our forgiveness work because it's coming to the surface to be done. I hope that answered your question for now, but feel free to ask more about that. A flash that happened while I was wide awake, triggered by an activity that I was doing. Yeah, great. I have talked to so many acupuncturists and massage therapists over the years and yoga instructors who are working with other people, and somebody will turn a certain way in a pose, or a needle will go in a certain way, or, you know, a muscle will be squeezed, and somebody will have a memory come up from another lifetime. It's very common. It's much more common than we give it credit for. So when we do that, that's a gift. That's a gift of information, of insight to understand something that's happening in our world today. And it's a gift, and we should hold on to it and assimilate it in whatever lesson it's trying to show us that we're looking, or that we're dealing with today. So that's wonderful. And again, let me know if I didn't answer that fully. Oops, I went too far. Okay, you, me, and current events. I didn't go too far. So let's talk about this, because there is so much going on in the world right now. You know, shootings and fires and politics and the pandemic. Oh my, to put it mildly. You know, and so what's happening on the outside of our world right now is pushing on the things in our subconscious storage that that are needing to be healed. So if it's politics that's pushing your buttons, then look at the politics, and that's fine, but look at what it's pushing on in you. And is the emotion, I probably shouldn't have used politics as the example, should I? If the emotion is getting in your way of being okay and being at peace with you and your stance and your view and your vision and your actions, then that's something to look at. The fires recently, let me do something a little less hot, if I can say that about fires. So the fires this week, for a moment, the fires in the Northwest, for a moment, I had a consultation group I was working with, and one person had to cancel because they were being evacuated in her area, and another therapist had to cancel because just because of everything they're having to deal with. They're not being evacuated, but they're dealing with the smoke all around them. If they're far enough away from the fires, they don't have to evacuate, but they're close enough that they're getting all the fumes and the smoke and all of the reactions in that way. So, so it really hit me like, oh my gosh, you know, here we are with all of this other stuff going on, and now this. And it just felt like, and this too, oh my gosh, you know, and my job, part of my job, not my only part of my job, but part of my job is to find, to help people find hope in what's happening in their lives, because there's always a solution. And even in all of this mess of these things, there's a solution, and they're happening for a reason, and there's a bigger picture. But in the meantime, what these things are doing is stirring the pot. It's roiling, I love that word, roiling the stew of stuff in our own subconscious, in the collective unconscious of our country, of our planet, and everything's getting stirred up. And our job is to say, okay, what is it pushing on in me? Let me take care of that, so then I can be of better service to others, to myself and others, in all of this big mess that who knows what's next. And I don't want to even ask the question, but you know, here we are. So now is the time to watch our patterns and our reactions and practice living from higher thinking, higher values, and even intuition. If we're going to act, let's be actively guided from within. If we're going to just try to hold the space and hold the peace, then we need to be peacefully watching of outer goings on, but peacefully watching what's happening inside of us as well. And remember, more than anything, that there's a bigger plan going on than we can see. That, you know, all of this that is happening has come from the collective karma, if you will. And so it's in motion already. It has to go on. It has to happen. But if we all can do our part in taking care of ourselves, that makes a huge energetic difference to what's happening in the planet and what's happening in our humanity. All right, checking the chat here. Yeah, I thought, what's next? Frogs, right? We're gonna have frogs drop. Who knows? Frogs wouldn't be so bad. Just as long as it's not snakes, that would be really creepy. I had an experience of why I fear heights. In another life, I fell off an elephant and had bodily and eyesight challenges. Okay, great. So that's great. Yeah, and those things can help us understand, you know, why do I have this fear? Fears are phobias, like extreme fears and phobias are a great example of energy, emotion that we carry from one lifetime to another. I remember my oldest, when she was born, we lived in Albuquerque, New Mexico, and I tell you what, every day we had a corner in the dining room where every single day there was a spider and a spider web. And it was a new one because I killed the old one. I never used to kill bugs until I had kids, and then it's like, too bad, so sad. You lose bugs. So, you know, I'm just helping them evolve into their next evolution of consciousness. So that's how I thought. So anyway, so my oldest would learn that every day there was going to be a spider in that corner, and she came into this world scared to death of spiders. To this day, I'm sorry for laughing because that is kind of cute, her reactions, but she is scared to death of spiders. And so she would go to that corner every day. And I'm talking starting at 1 year old when she could walk. She would go and check that corner. Sure enough, there'd be a new spider there, and she would scream at the top of her lungs, this high-pitched, blood-curdling scream. And, you know, at first I would run in there like her, you know, she just lost her hand or something. And then I learned, oh, that's the spider scream. Okay, so then I would go over and calmly take care of the spider, and we say goodbye, and we flush it down the toilet and say a little prayer for it, and then she'd be okay. And then the next day we start over from scratch. So I know in later years, and when I was able to help her and support her with some of her past life things, that there's a very big reason why she was afraid of spiders. and that came in with her in this lifetime. I won't share that because that's personal for her, but definitely came in from another lifetime. So, all right. All right, so we actually made it through the subconscious chapter, even though we will continue to talk about the subconscious because it continues to be part of who we are and our healing process and our awakening process. And so it's really important to just nail this home, and you will see this iceberg again, either the drawn one or this one or both. But chapter 6 in Spiritual Power Tools is the process for consciously unveiling your soul. So this is about waking up to your whole spiritual self, learning about yourself. A part of that is learning about yourself and how you operate now, the good, the bad, and the ugly, and knowing where all those parts have come from and all those pieces have come from, and letting go of the negative patterns, the soul issues that have been with you from lifetime after lifetime. They're stored in that subconscious and they need to be balanced. So we come into this to balance ourselves out. If we've been male in many lifetimes, we will have to have a lifetime where we're here to balance out our feminine energy. It's not a man-woman thing, it's a type of energy, right? It's a masculine versus feminine, and the infinite energy is both. So in order to become one with that energy that is both masculine and feminine and neutral, we have to know how to live in those different energies. So that's an example of how subconscious things need to be balanced out sometimes. So our intuition, when we meditate, our intuition is like an ice pick that chips away at that subconscious iceberg and reveals unconscious blocks that have kept us stuck for lifetime after lifetime. And that knowledge gives us new insight, again, to what's happening today, but also into our old patterns, our soul patterns. And it gives us a different perspective that we can work with and use what's happening today in order to heal that soul issue. And awareness, I love this part in this chapter. This is my favorite part because it's a good reminder for me. It's awareness of these subconscious pieces brings responsibility to alter our actions, our attitudes, our understanding, to alter our behavior, to alter our choices, to alter how we're looking at things. So that with that awareness comes that responsibility to change. I remember when I was growing up, I grew up in Unity, which is a liberal Christian base, but I hesitate to identify with the word Christian nowadays. That's just my personal feeling about how I identify my spirituality. But in Unity, I was taught that we are all God's children. We are all God's children. There's not one person walking around on this planet that is not a child of God, that is beautiful and inherently good. Not one person on the planet is not inherently good, even now, even today. And you know what I'm talking about. And there was one day when I was in college that I was talking to my mom. We were going to do, she was doing a workshop and I was going to come and give a workshop at it. And she asked me, what's your message? I'm like, I don't really know what's your message. She's like, sure you do. Just what's your message? What's meaningful to you? And I said, well, I guess that we're all children of God. And she's like, well, what does that mean to you? And then I just had this huge, I started crying, and I had this huge burst of understanding that, being a child of God is a huge responsibility. That means we have to act like it. We have to act like it, just not with the good stuff that comes to us because we're children of God, but that means we help other people and we love other people, and we're all in this together, and we all work to lift each other up, not tear each other apart. And along with that, it's like, but we don't all know that. We're not all aware of that. And I had this little formula that I came up with for that presentation about, when we're in first grade, you know, when we're in kindergarten, we learn what numbers are. Well, now preschool, oh my gosh, you know, 2 or 3 years old now, kids are learning their numbers, right? But so we learn our numbers, and that's the first step. And then in kindergarten or first grade, or whenever the heck kids are learning it nowadays, we learn addition, right? We learn, okay, here's these numbers, but here's what we can do with them. Now we can kind of move them around and add things together. And then we have subtraction. So not only can we add things together, but we can subtract things, and then we can multiply them and make them bigger, faster, and then we can divide them and make them smaller, faster. And, you know, then there's trigonometry, and I don't even know how to describe that, because that was way too long ago, and I have not used it, so I've lost it. You know, and there's so many different things we can do with numbers, and our spiritual awareness is like that too. If I understand I'm a child of God, well, that's one thing if I can say it in my head. It's another thing if I can feel it in my heart. It's another thing if I can understand that that means I have to hold myself to a higher standard than somebody who maybe isn't aware that they're a child of God. And my holding myself to a higher standard, then I can help them hold the best for where they're at, however, whatever that looks like. You know, maybe they aren't ready to have that understanding that they're a child of God too, and that everybody's a child of God, and we are all in this together. But at least I can hold that with them. You know, I can't talk to all of my clients about reincarnation or karma or, you know, past lives or subconscious and, you know, their soul evolution. I can't talk to everybody about that, and it doesn't matter. I don't care about having to talk to them about that. What I care about is that I know that there's a bigger picture here. I just need to help with what's in front, right? That's all. But my consciousness, my awareness holds that for the other person in ways they don't have to know about. Maybe it'll help them just see what they need to see in that moment that will help them understand something about themselves better. Awesome. But that's the kind of responsibility that our awareness brings. We are held to a higher standard when we know that there's a lot more going on than meets the eye. You know, we don't want to get lost in little tit for tats on Facebook, or we don't want to, you know, it's just not worth our time. It's just not worth our time. You know, what I would rather do is meditate and, you know, have our meditation at the end of class and feel that connection and lift ourselves after that. And I've heard from many people, not just our meditations together on Sunday nights, but anytime people meditate together in a group, they feel that uplifting peacefulness when they're done. And that's, you know, that's our job, is to help lift each other up in that way. When we know better, we do better, from Maya Angelou. Yes, thank you. My daughter is scared to death of raccoons and always has been. Still is at 40 years old. Now I know why. Absolutely. Can you know, just think about all the times we've lived out in the wilderness and been, you know, eaten by critters. You know, I'm sorry to be so gross, but that is just the reality of nature, right? So now we can stay away from them a little bit better, call an exterminator, but that has not always been the case. So you got the idea on that. That's good. All right, so the pull of our soul, and this is still from chapter 6. The ultimate desire of our soul is to wake up, whether we know it or not. That is the spark of divinity, if you will, the spark of infinite intelligence that is inherent within us, because we are creations from that infinite intelligence. So we all have the pull to wake up. Now, until we're aware that that's a spiritual pull, we, in every lifetime, we're working on bettering ourselves, looking to match that internal feeling. So it's like, okay, if only I can have the perfect family, or the perfect tribe, or the perfect relationship, or the perfect expression, or the perfect leadership position, or the perfect battle, or the perfect whatever, you know, we go through all of these different kinds of experiences to, that's part of that pull, because we have to, in all those experiences, we're building all of the things, attributes and strengths and balances that we need in order to be ready to be aware of that pull of our souls. So all of that is good. That's why our goal setting is good. That's why learning how to create what we want in our lives is good, because learning how to do that and actively working on those things that are important to us are all part of this pull of our soul. We're wired for spirituality, so we're going to awaken no matter what. And so that pull is always there. And what that pull does too, as we're awakening, is that information comes up from the subconscious mind. You know, that little ice pick helps things come up. And as we work with those issues that need to be released and release them and forgive, release, let go, whatever it is that we need to do, then that creates more room for energy that comes down. If we're talking about up from the subconscious, we can talk about down from super consciousness or infinite, that infinite energy, that soul part of us, to raise our vibration and expand our awareness, our understanding of something. And that universal energy is always there to support us. And every now and then we get glimpses of, I put down here infinite intelligence, but I want to say glimpses of bliss, if you will, because maybe infinite intelligence sounds a little heady, but if you think of a time where you have felt bliss, maybe you've just been, I remember going sailing with my boyfriend and just feeling, I felt this freedom, like the wind and the lake and just the openness and the freedom that felt is a kind of bliss, you know. Or if you just felt, you know, I'm sure you all have had lots of moments where it's like, oh, you get something and you feel like, oh my gosh, I can let this go. Or, oh my gosh, this is what's true about me. And, oh, this is wonderful. And, oh, there's something bigger here. Those are little moments of bliss that keep us going, like, oh, I want more of that. And those bliss moments don't last forever because we're not pure enough to be in it forever. You know, we've got this big iceberg that gets in our way and filters things in a way that comes from the past instead of that infinite now that is here. So we get glimpses of it, though, that keep us going and keep us wanting more. You know, it's our job to release our fears, our limitations, our resistance, and we have to actively desire and support wakening up, or any change that we want to make. If there's any change that you want to make, you have to actively desire it and support it in order for it to happen. And that's true with that awakening process as well. All right, and we are here to transcend our human mind and become more of our spiritual beingness. It's the next step in our human spiritual evolution. And in the meantime, we carry around a limited personality self that lives in the opposites of the human world, the third dimensional world, as Jane Elizabeth calls it. It's run by emotions and drama and limited intellect. As much as we love our intelligence, it's limited. It doesn't see the whole picture. It doesn't see, you know, it can see what's best in a debate, but it can't see what's best for the whole. And maybe it can see what's best for the whole, but it can't see what's karmically possible for the whole, which is a whole different story too. You know, we've spent a lot of lifetimes trying to be happy, trying to control our own world so things happen the way we want them to happen, not paying attention to, not even being aware that there's a bigger picture. There's other things that we need to be paying attention to, like our subconscious and the blocks that are keeping us from getting what we really want and so forth. Our status quo, human mind, brain, body, fears losing control. It resists change. It fights with the awakening process. If you've ever tried to change a habit, this is exactly what I'm talking about. You know, our status quo behavior wants to maintain its reign. And even though we want to head towards the new behavior, we get pulled back into the old behavior. And that's, you know, this is just the same process. We can feel nervous or disoriented or overwhelmed when we're rewiring to that spiritual, more and more to that spiritual self. You know, I know that I've talked with many people about, you know, when we're changing behavior, if that behavior's been there for a long time, it feels, or it can feel like we're betraying ourselves, or we're betraying somebody else, or we're betraying a part of ourselves, and we really are. We're betraying that old behavior because we're working towards aligning with the new behavior, but it can feel kind of weird as we're in that transitioning process. You know, there's many life transitions that we go through where that can happen, like when we move from, you know, living with our parents to living on our own. That's a huge life transition. When we go from being single to being married, that's a huge shift in life transition. When we go from working to being retired, another huge transition. And so all of these transitions, every time we change, there's a transition, even a mini transition that's happening inside of us that can feel kind of disorienting for a while until we're fully implanted in the new behavior, the new mindset, and so forth. The soul magnetizes us toward our fourth dimensional beingness, or our higher self, our human potential. We are wired for progress and expansion. So whether we are ready to make the leap into our spiritual self, or just to feel more okay with our own whole self, that's part of this process also. And we vacillate between the old behavior and the new behavior. In her book, Jane Elizabeth's talking about vacillating between the third and the fourth dimension. But anytime we're making those changes, we vacillate back and forth from the old behavior to the new behavior, old behavior to the new behavior, until the new behavior has won. And that's just part of the process. I wanted to revisit this chart from, I don't remember what chapter this is, and I think it's the second chapter. But the third dimensional consciousness list of descriptions versus the fourth dimensional consciousness descriptions, and how different they are. And so the fourth dimensional behaviors don't just happen. We have to actively pursue those. You know, we can't turn off our mind as human beings, but as we work towards it, eventually we can. And so that's part of the process, but it doesn't happen overnight. It's that active, slow but sure process. We identify with our limit self versus our identifying with our unlimited self. That takes time. We can't just do it all of a sudden. And I think the week, not last week, but the week before, when I was trying to share a video, there was a video of Jane Elizabeth talking about how we can't, you know, if a blind man suddenly had an operation where he could see, but he's never been able to see before, it would be overwhelming. The information that he now had access to would be completely overwhelming. There's light, and there's colors, and there's shapes, and there's, you know, a table isn't just a table, because there's a round table and a square table and a rectangle table and a high table and a low table. There's so many details. And the more we, as we look into our subconscious mind and see all the pieces running around, if we were able to just kind of poke our head in there and look at it without knowing what to do with that information, it'd be totally overwhelming to us. That's why we have that veil between the conscious mind and the subconscious mind in that iceberg image. There's a veil that keeps that storage down, and so it just seeps up for us to handle a little piece at a time. We don't have to handle the gigantic thing at once. Thank God. That would be awful. Not awful about the good stuff, because we always like the good stuff, but it'd be awful about all the soul issues that we have to see about ourselves and look at and say, okay, I'm ready to change. I'm ready to let these go. All right. I love this picture. I hope you guys remember this one too. All right, so chapter 7 of Spiritual Power Tools is spiritual detoxification. As we awaken, our vibration increases and is slowly refined over time. As we purify the energy stored in that subconscious mind, it dissolves, and that increases our ability to carry light, to carry energy, to, it raises our vibration from, our iceberg is really dense, right? But as that fills with energy, that fills with the spirit, if you will, of our soul, then it's lighter. It's a lighter, less dense vibration. So vibration meaning electricity, energy, cosmic manifestation. If you think of that iceberg as entrapped energy, that's really what it is. Someday we'll be able to measure that, but right now we can't. But someday we'll be able to measure the emotional energy momentum that we carry around. Sometimes you can feel it in other people. We can feel their lightness or we can feel their heaviness. And that's what we're talking about here. Old storage, there are toxins, if you will, that are surfacing to be released, and that energy must be clarified. When I work with a tool that I use in my practice called brain spotting, I will usually tell people after a session, now this is like, we are going in there, and brain spotting is a tool like meditation that allows us to go in deep and work on an issue and process it through. And when we do that, we're kind of squeezing out old energy, old thought patterns, because our brain, if we just want to think of this physically for a minute, our brain is running all the time on electricity, little electrical impulses from one nerve cell to the other. So when we have stored unprocessed emotion inside of us, whether it's from this lifetime or another lifetime, but let's just talk about this lifetime, then that is active. That's active electricity that is being, that's storing an experience, storing the emotional energy around an experience. So that's active all the time. And so when we release that, it's also releasing some of the stored yuck that we've been carrying around with us. And I love this picture. This is from, in case you don't recognize it, from an old Scope commercial that I saw when I was a kid all the time. And, if you don't remember it, it was, the before she used Scope and after she used Scope image. And this is before she used Scope. So she's eating, I don't know, pasta or something filled with onions and garlic. And she turns to her, whatever this guy is to her, and says, hi. And out comes this big, I remember it being kind of red. You can barely see it. I don't know if you guys can see that little puff of airy goo coming out towards this guy. And he's going, oh my God. And I laugh at this and I love this because there have been times when something has come up for me and I'm working with it, but I'm like, just kind of, it just came up. So I'm feeling like all I'm seeing is this issue about myself and I don't like it. And it feels like I am contaminating everybody all around me right now because this negative energy was coming up and it was just oozing out of me. It was being released, but it didn't feel like it. It just felt like I was just sitting in my own excrement. And so it just felt like, oh gosh, don't even come close to me. I am just oozing negativity and I don't want it to touch anybody else. And so I love this for that, because sometimes we feel that way. Sometimes we have to look at something within ourselves that is like, yuck, I really don't want to say that about myself. And right now, when that comes up, I can't see anything good about myself in this moment. I'm sure there is, but that is just not what is coming up for me to look at right now. So I feel like I'm oozing this negativity. So, and it really is letting go of old energetic toxins, that aren't needed anymore. I was talking about brain spotting, and so, after brain spotting session, I will tell people, this is like a deep tissue massage. If you've ever had a deep tissue massage where they really go in and they squeeze things out, and maybe you feel pretty good afterwards, but the next day you feel like you got hit by a truck because all the toxins from your muscles are coursing through your body and making you feel not good. but it's good that it's doing that because it got it out of your muscles. Your muscles have been storing those toxins, and now they can release it. And then 2 days later, you feel great. You feel 10 years younger. And brain spotting is like that. It feels really bad sometimes afterwards. We feel tired, or we feel, I don't want to say it feels bad, but it's bringing up and it's squeezing out emotional toxins. And so when we're working at that deeper level of clearing out subconscious stuff, we are clearing out spiritual, I don't want to say spiritual toxins, but toxins at a deeper level than just emotional, than just from our emotional body or from our physical body. It's really squeezing out things that have been in there for a long time, and it can feel like this lady talking to her husband. Probably feels more like the guys and ladies sometimes. So like, oh yuck, I did not want to have to smell that. Oh, that's gross. All right, so, but those storage toxins, those old toxins are surfacing to be released. That energy has to come up and out. So, so one of my unconscious approaches that I've had, that people have shared with me, and I've had to notice that about myself, but as a therapist, is like, they'll come in and something's not going right, and it's like, okay, great, this is a great example of what we're talking about, let's work with it, because it's like, good, this is up and out, and it's, our healing process isn't about just making things go our way all the time. God, I wish it was, but that's not how this whole system is set up. The whole system, the whole what system? Our human body system, the karmic system, the infinite intelligence system. It's not about getting our way all the time. Sometimes we do, and that's awesome. But it's not about that all the time. It's about healing and letting things go so that we can be in the flow of what we need to be doing, and it's all good then. It's all good. And so Jane Elizabeth lists some symptoms that can show up in the spiritual detoxification process that can manifest physically. So we can, cold is not always just a cold. Sometimes it's our body's way of saying, okay, I'm working on something, I'm working on releasing something, and I need you just to be resting now. And, flu, rashes, probably includes COVID, I don't know. Waves of heat or cold, tingling, change in breath rate. If you've ever been meditating and you have a change in breath rate, that can be part of that process too. Weight gain, weight loss, physical vibrating, just feeling that energy coursing through you, bursts of tears or laughter, and so forth. So all of these things can be part of that process. There's something that we call the weekies that Jane Elizabeth has taught us, and that's when the energy that we're working on is holding us, our attention so strongly that we can't really think about anything else, and we're a little disoriented. It's like, oh my gosh, I've got the weekies, so I just need to just rest and watch TV or just be quiet, listen to soft music, or go for a walk, or something that's just calming and allowing us to be present and not doing 50 other things at the time. So we honor those times, we honor those sensations, because it's like, okay, there's something's moving here. I love this picture. This picture is from some organization, and forgive me, I don't know what organization, and it doesn't really matter to me, because I've just always loved this picture. This was one of the big pictures that we had in our basement growing up. It was, right there along with, life-size Jesus picture in the basement. And this was one that Jane Elizabeth introduced in some of her classes too. So I was already very familiar with it by the time I met her. And what I am showing this picture for us today is to show the different levels of who we are. So we have our body, and that's our 1/10 conscious part of us, right? Our body, our physical manifestation of who we are in this lifetime. And then we have that next level that is our soul. I call that middle one the soul. It's our individualized expression of God or the universe, infinite intelligence. It's our unique vibration. It holds with us and helps us unravel that history and both the yuck that needs to be cleared out and the potential that needs to come into expression. And then that spirit part of us that is one. So it's almost like this funnel of the infinite to this individual expression to the part of us that lands on the earth. And we need that part of us on the earth because this is where we learn all of our lessons. This is where we work through stuff, and we have to have all of these parts. So as we awaken our body, that physical manifestation has to adjust to the increasing vibration as more of that soul becomes part of us and it expresses through us and the energy moving through us. And so that's the purpose that spiritual detoxification serves when we have those different symptoms that, you know, may lay us flat for a little while. It's all part of the process. All right, looks like we have a question. Let me see. I had a moment during meditation this week where I suddenly was hot with sweat running down my back and forehead. Not menopausal symptom. Yes, that's a very good example of that. Very, very excellent, perfect example of that, where it's like, I'm sweating and I don't know why. You know, or all of a sudden I'm cold and I get goosebumps, and you know, the air temperature hasn't changed, just suddenly I have chills all over. So that's right on with what we're talking about. So chapter 7A in Spiritual Power Tools, Jane Elizabeth called the steps to take to ascend into fourth dimensional consciousness and work in the best interest of your soul. I obviously shortened that title a little bit because it would not fit in the little bar up there. But basically, you know, how do you become enlightened? Here are the steps you take. When I want to point out, for those of you who aren't interested in being enlightened in this lifetime, A, we're planting seeds for 3 lifetimes from now, but B, all of these steps are true for anything we want to create or manifest in our lives. You know, most of them, we have to kind of stretch them a little bit, but most of these are true for any kind of change that we're making. So first we have to commit to it. She's talking about committing to our souls, to work with our souls and cooperate with the process of that unveiling the iceberg, but at the same time unveiling more about who we are as our spiritual beingness. And that starts that process of unfolding that awareness. Meditation is essential because it quiets our mind, and when our minds are quiet, more information can come through from our intuition, telling us about a step we need to take, or telling us about some subconscious information that we need to know in order to work and release and let go, balance, whatever's needed. Observing and managing our emotions, it allows us to have clear thinking and to take right action if we're clouded. And again, I had an experience of this today when I was clouded by my emotions and I wasn't able to think clearly or take actions that I would have preferred taking. So being able to observe those and catch them as they're coming up is very important, and manage. You know, I can see my emotion coming up, but I don't have to act on that. And that takes practice, but it's important because it allows for that clear thinking, and clear thinking and right action keeps things moving freely and flowing and keeps us moving forward. Becoming less dependent on our intellect develops intuition. The more we practice tuning into our intuition, then we're less dependent on the intellect, which is only pulling from our storage. Only 100% of the time pulling from our storage. We want the intuition to be what gives us our information. Not that we don't use our intelligence or that intellect, but we use it differently. We use it as a worker for the intuition instead of relying fully on the intellect for all of our information and orders, because our intellect is not pure, remember. Releasing our lesser desires. So obviously not releasing your desire to grow, but releasing lesser desires stops future karma, because, you know, I used to sing in Sunday school, love is what makes the world go round. But in a meditation one time years ago, I was just getting up. I just finished and I was just getting up and I just heard, desire is what makes the world go round. Oh, because desire is what makes the karmic wheel go round. Because if we have a desire, the universe has to fulfill that desire. So then it just keeps us desiring and desiring more, because we're never fulfilled by anything in our human world. We are for a little while, but then there's always something more that we want, or different that we want, or been there, done that. Let's keep moving forward. So releasing those lesser desires, which is kind of a Buddhist approach, right? You're letting go of attachments, stops future karma, stops us from creating lifetime after lifetime where the universe has to fulfill all these desires for us. And forgiveness erases karma. Forgiveness erases karma. And we are going to be talking about forgiveness a whole heck of a lot, especially when we get to the 7 steps spiritual power tool. And forgiveness is how we release our past karma and stop future karma. So if you remember my picture of Jim and Sally and them kind of they were either dancing together or pushing on each other, I don't know, but if they can forgive themselves, they don't have to come back and work it out next time. That's a very simplistic way of describing that, but that's all I'm going to do for tonight on that. But we'll get there. And then letting go of the ego. The word ego gets such a bad rap. I hated to leave that in there, but it's in the book, so I did. But relying less on our personality self and realizing that we're more empowers our soul. It empowers our soul. So, any questions? You can always throw questions up there too. But we have completed the first half of the book. We are now ready for next week to go on to each of the spiritual power tools, and we'll take them as fast or as slow as we want to go. So we'll start with those next week, but let's take a little bit of time for meditation now. I invite you just to rest. Again, this is a lot of information. I'm curious about your questions so that I'm incorporating what I need to in these times. So just make a mental note of sending me an email and let that thought go for right now. Just let your breathing be at a natural rate. Slow and steady. Everything that we do is spiritual. Everything we do is supporting our spiritual growth. Any thoughts, any mistakes, any choices, any interactions is always there to support us. Always there, always an opportunity to learn. And we need to know that bigger picture is always there. The beauty of that is that our focus can be just on what's ours to do in that bigger picture. What is mine to learn? What is mine to heal? What is mine to strengthen? What is mine to release? And think about right now what your heart's desire is. What is your heart's desire? Picture that desire already being fulfilled. And as you see that fulfilled for yourself, and you think about your commitment to it and working towards it, ask, what is it that I need to strengthen in order to make this happen? Where do I need to stretch and grow? Where do I need to take charge of myself to win for myself? Just feel the wisdom rising as you ask these questions. These are the things I need to do to fulfill my heart's desire. Thank you for these answers. Now, what do I need to let go of in order to fulfill my heart's desire? What old behaviors, what old perspective, what people, places, things, situations do I need to let go of in order to support the fulfillment of this desire? And let these answers come to the surface. And as these come to the surface, maybe you sense resistance or more resistance coming up with that. And that's just part of growing. That's just part of being stronger than the old behavior, the old way of thinking. The resistance comes up to be released and to strengthen us first, and then be released. And the more we persevere in that desire, the stronger we are. So that even if that desire doesn't come to fruition the way we think it's supposed to, we have strengthened ourselves mightily, and that is empowering. That helps us shift and navigate to the next step, the next thing that we're working towards. We are here to grow. We are here to learn about ourselves. We are here to love ourselves. We are here to love one another. And we are here to hold the light as much as we possibly can. First for ourselves. As we do that, the whole world lights up. And that is our most precious part of the whole plan, being that light. I invite you to bring these new understandings with you, feeling yourself in your chair, and just say some words of gratitude in your own way. Your gratitude for support that you receive and probably don't even know it. For your support that you receive that you do know, for your answers, for your own self that is open. That's a beautiful thing to be grateful for. So with love and gratitude, we say thank you. Take a deep breath. And when you're ready, open your eyes. And next week we will be starting on the spiritual power tools. A lot of you, if you've ever talked with me for 5 or 10 minutes, a lot of you know at least the 7 steps, if not many of the others. A lot of you are very familiar with them, and for some of you, these are brand new. So we will start on the tools that Jane Elizabeth came up with for herself on her journey to work through some pretty tough stuff that she has had to work with within herself over the years. And they are tried and true for us to be able to use. And they're designed to help us grow out of our current state of mind, whether it's 3rd to the 4th dimension or just from old behavior to new, better habits and values and support for ourselves. And they truly are spiritual solutions for our everyday problems, everyday happenings that come up for us. So have a wonderful week, and my love to all of you. Feel free to email with any questions too. I am always definitely happy to know if there's something else I need to be addressing that I'm not addressing, because I can just go on and on about the way I have, but I'm happy to make sure we're getting what you want to know too. So anyway, have a wonderful week, and I will see you next week. Bye-bye.